Up next, Team UC Mindlab.
And so how did both of you come about to joining this competition?
So our advisor, Dr. Ja, she got an email from the Air Force Research Lab about like a week or two after this whole thing started, and we just decided it looked interesting enough, so we just decided to try it.
Yeah, so if we take a look at your video, we can try to look at how, I guess, your strategy and how you developed your algorithms, how it played out, and then we can try to analyze to see, what were the key takeaways that you might have from this performance. In this case, you're the red team at the bottom, and you can see your three agents sort of dispersing. Now, is there any sort of insight you see from the way you wrote your algorithm, how they distributed initially?
I think it depends largely on what they've seen before. So I think it's interesting that they kind of spread to different locations. Like the one stayed further back, one kind of ventured out.
So if we pause and we go back a little bit there, you can see that the agents seem to be stuck on the board at the moment. And is there some understanding of maybe why that might have occurred? Because you said they kind of had different strategies for the agents, which is sort of a unique focus for some of the teams.
I think that means that we need some adjustments for the rewards or some sort of negative reward to compensate for it choosing an action that isn't necessarily the best overall strategy, but it gives the agent a reward. So it'd be like, it's not choosing the best path, but it's choosing what it sees as good enough for right now, because we don't have enough of the future vision in it.
Aaron, if I remember correctly, it wasn't part of this bug because we were having trouble figuring out what the actual boundaries of the space were, because we thought a good way to train it would be to have that kind of global information that the agent doesn't actually know, but like we know what the boundaries of the neutral and enemy and friendly space are theoretically, but it just wasn't easily accessible. So I think that was what was causing our problem.
So when you started off the mission, if we sort of dissect how it evolved, it looks like they have their own independent focuses for each of the agents, so they sort of disperse, which is good to maybe capitalize on search area. Was that part of your strategy to disperse, or did they have a different approach to determining their path away from the start?
So a lot of what we wanted to do was to have the agents kind of learn themselves the best way individually how to perform in the space. So the fact that they spread out or stay together would be what they learned just through the training. And so whether they found that it was better to stay together or disperse was part of the seeing which they chose was, I guess, part of the fun of seeing how it all played out.
A lot of teams might have developed the same strategy for all agents to try to maximize some performance. In your case, given that each agent has unique capabilities, this learned behavior, do you think it was a pro or a con for you? Because I know you might have had some hiccups in the execution, but it looks like you have some really good fundamental approach.
In having them evolve individually is a pretty decent start, but I think it would also be interesting to see if any sort of overarching strategy could be created, some way to tie their learning together so that the reward isn't necessarily based only on themselves and what that specific agent does, but maybe how all three agents perform together.
Now, how did you decompose your strategy into maybe smaller strategies? Because you might have divided up the problem into smaller pieces. Is there some key components that you developed in your strategy that you could work in hierarchically attack the problem?
Yeah, we wanted to have it be almost like a sequence of events. So for example, the capture, the first thing it needs to do is it needs to move out of its own zone into the neutral zone, and then from the neutral zone to the enemy zone, and then from the enemy zone to the flag. And so it's kind of in each one of those different areas, it could maybe be divided up further, but we wanted to kind of step through those and then have any sort of problems we might encounter there, break those down, or for rewarding the agent for going through the sequence of steps, like how to give the proper amount of rewards so that it goes through all of them and doesn't just keep trying to get that one small reward that it would go for, like it would go towards the enemy zone to get the larger reward.
And is there anything that you would change in your strategy going into it? Because as you play through and use the simulator, you might have realized, hey, this was maybe not ideal, but you don't have enough time to go back and do something different.
A little bit more of a structured plan for each and every step, and defining those beforehand probably could have helped us a great deal. And then also on the strategy level, I think, just as like we talked about earlier, having the agents learn from each other or get rewards based off of what all three agents are doing rather than just what that singular agent is doing, I think would help develop strategies and maybe or develop multi-agent strategies and maybe increase the performance.
And so did you have any sort of memory to try to recover the tracks, or is it actually the same sort of navigation strategy through the buildings?
We did have memory of the buildings because we made it so that once a agent has seen the building or it has communicated with an agent that has seen that building, it will store it, and then we just put the building information into the observation matrix before we put it into the network so that it always remembers.
Would there be anything that you would say we should change this competition for the next year, because once you've mastered the coordinate systems and the simple training that you might think you have to do, what would be the next level that you would try to complicate the game?
Changing the space of the zones, like the specific dimensions of each one, or whether or not there is those defined zones in terms of what the agents can see. Maybe they just start as a completely divided in half, red side, blue side, with buildings around. It would make it a little bit more difficult, at least for some of the agents, and then maybe even increasing the size of the entire area and adding more agents, or I guess just different capabilities for agents.
And do you think there's a pro or a con to having the different types of agents?
I see the different types of agents as a pro because it's challenges us to kind of think about different ways to approach a problem, because the sensor, the jammer, and the capture won't approach this whole problem the same. They'll each see their own little problems. And I think that is a very interesting aspect of it that I liked.